All right, in this video, I want to talk to you about asking good questions. John Maxwell actually wrote an entire book about how great leaders ask really good questions. And a really helpful thing that we can learn to do when we lead a small group is to ask intentional, good questions. Now, you see this in the life of Jesus all the time. Jesus takes someone else's question, he processes it, reframes it, and then asks them a question in response. He intentionally keeps the conversation going. And this is a way that we as leaders can, first off, make sure everybody in the group is involved, because we can intentionally ask questions of everybody in the group. It's a way that we as leaders can help people feel included and valued, because almost everybody wants someone to ask them for more explanation about their opinion. People like to share their opinions and they like to talk about themselves. So when you as a leader notice what someone says and then ask a good follow-up question, then you empower and you show value to the people that you lead. Sometimes the temptation can be to get through the life group questions, to get through the material that you have, and for that to kind of control the conversation. But sometimes the best thing you can do is, instead of moving on to the next question in the list, ask a follow-up question of the people in the group. It could go something like this. When someone is sharing in your group very surface level answers, maybe you've had a few weeks where it feels like the whole group or just a few people in the group are staying really at the surface, then a great way you as a leader can address that is just to ask a follow-up question. Something like, John, that was a great insight. How would you apply that to a situation in your life right now? That follow-up question can help people go deeper without having to be confrontational in the way that you deal with the situation, asking that follow-up question. Or you can use intentional questions to make sure everybody in your group is engaged. In most small groups, there are going to be some people who talk a lot and some people who don't really share at all. So if you as the leader notice your individuals from the last video, you then intentionally ask questions and you say, hey, Jamie, I would love to hear your thoughts on this topic. I know that you have something interesting to share from your perspective. And once again, you validate, you add value, you empower someone, and you invite them into the circle just by asking an intentional question of the people involved. Now, also, asking good questions can help you deal with tension. You might find that you've got someone who's always dominating the conversation. So maybe after a life group, you want to pull that person aside and say, hey, I know you've got so much good stuff to share and it's so helpful, but we've got a lot of people in the group, so would you be able to help me out by making sure that everybody in the group has space to share? And then you as the leader might add something like, you and I can talk before or after group to go a little deeper, but you can help me lead this group by helping me make sure there's space. Can you do that for me? When you phrase it as a question, you invite the person to help so that you can deal with the situation without confrontation. Now, let me say this. Sometimes confrontation is inevitable. Sometimes confrontation is part of the process, and we're not avoiding that or avoiding tension, but if we can move through a situation by asking good questions that invite people in, and instead of pushing people away, then that's always the first way that we want to deal with a situation. The last way, or at least the last way I want to point out right now, that a good question can help you as a life group leader is when you notice something that comes up in a group that can't really be dealt with in group. Maybe somebody brings up trauma from their past, or they bring up something that's kind of revealing to you, that's sending off those red flags in your mind that this needs to be dealt with by a professional or by a pastor. We're going to talk more about that in our next video. When that happens, a great thing you can do is to pull that person aside after the group and say, hey, that thing that you're going through or that thing that you shared must be so difficult. Would you let me connect you with someone who can help you find freedom and healing in that area of your life? Instead of just giving that person instruction of what to do, ask them, which gives them the authority, it gives them the ability to answer on their own and invites them into healing instead of trying to push them into healing. And when we ask good questions, we give agency to the people that we lead and we invite them. And that can be a wonderful way to deal with those things that inevitably get shared in group that indicate maybe a bigger thing that needs to be dealt with. So good life group leaders ask good questions, they ask them often, and they ask them intentionally.